Forensic. Related to scientific methods of solving crimes. Judicial. Magisterial. Scientific. Forensic science plays a crucial role in the criminal justice system. The forensic team discovered a blood-soaked cloth behind the bed. The crime scene was thoroughly investigated by the forensic team. Fraudulent. Wrongful or criminal deception intended for financial gain. Dishonest. Deceitful. Deceptive. The travel agency was shut down for fraudulent vacation packages. The government focused on fraudulent activities to prevent corruption. Fraudulent businesses often change their names to avoid detection. Trespass. Enter someone's land or property without permission. Intrusion. Invasion. Wrong entry. Trespass against a government building is considered a federal offense. The wire fence was a challenge to climb for those attempting to trespass. If you trespass on private property, you may be fined for unauthorized entry. Assassination. The murder of someone famous or important person. Manslaughter. Homicide. Slaying. President Kennedy's assassination had far-reaching repercussions. Members of Parliament were outraged by the news of the assassination. They are already serving prison sentences for their part in the assassination. Deterrence. Preventing people from criminal behavior. Obstruction. Impediment. Prevention. The government implemented a policy of deterrence to prevent crime. Deterrence can be seen as a form of prevention rather than punishment. Nuclear deterrence is a strategy used by many countries to prevent war. Witness. A person who sees an event, typically a crime or accident. Observer. Onlooker. Spectator. Line up these men and see if the witness can recognize the criminal. At this time, the police are reluctant to talk about witness evidence. The detective team spent 2 years amassing evidence from witnesses. Victim. Someone who has been hurt or killed. Sufferer. Scapegoat. Hostage. The victim received head injuries from which she died a week later. The victim was taken to a hospital, where she was pronounced dead. So many people get it wrong and end up hurting the victim even more. Espionage. Secretly collecting and reporting information. Spying. Surveillance. Secret service. The spy was skilled at machining complex espionage operations. Microdots are often used in espionage to transmit secret messages. The government has a countermeasure to prevent cyber espionage. Penalty. A punishment for doing something wrong. Punishment. Correction. Retribution. It is part of the contract that there is a penalty for late delivery. Some players claimed a penalty, but the referee told them to play on. The extreme penalty of the law in some countries is the death penalty. Delinquency. Crimes, especially committed by young people. Misbehavior. Wrongdoing. Misdeeds. Community involvement is crucial in preventing juvenile delinquency. The depraving influence of negative peer groups can lead to delinquency. Juvenile delinquency can have a negative impact on future opportunities. Conviction. Court's decision that someone is guilty. Adjudication. Sentence. Decree. The prosecutor was praised for their successful conviction rate. Because of his previous conviction, the judge refused to grant bail. The witness's testimony was instrumental in securing a conviction. Detention. The arrest or imprisonment of someone. Imprisonment. Incarceration. Confinement. He claimed that his detention by the authorities was unlawful. The juvenile offender was kept in detention with strict supervision. Arbitrary arrests and detention without trial were common in the past. Forfeiture. The loss of property as a penalty for wrongdoing. Seizure. Confiscation. Taking away. The forfeiture of his voting rights was a punishment for voter fraud. The forfeiture of his assets was a consequence of his illegal activities. The forfeiture of his passport prevented him from leaving the country. Suspect. To think or believe that someone is guilty. Offender. Perpetrator. Lawbreaker. The suspect of the hate crime was charged with a felony offense. The police were able to obtain a set of fingerprints from the suspect. She was a suspect of being involved in a money laundering operation. Plaintiff. A person who brings a legal action. Petitioner. Appellant. Prosecutor. The plaintiff's lawyer presented a compelling opening statement. The lawsuit was dismissed due to the plaintiff's nugatory claims. The plaintiff claimed that the correct procedures had not been followed. Verdict. An official judgment is made in court. Resolution. Punishment. Settlement. The judge is open to hearing arguments to dispute the verdict. The court's initial verdict in the police officer's trial set off serious riots. The lawyer suspected that the judge was bribed to arrive at a guilty verdict. Detective. A police officer who investigates crimes. Investigator. Scrutinizer. Police officer. When you're a detective, you learn to weigh people up quickly. It took a lot of detective work to discover the cause of the problem. A detective's work consists largely of forming and testing hypotheses. Hearsay. Information that is not substantiated is rumor. Invalid. Unofficial. Groundless. It is important to rely solely on facts rather than rumors or hearsay. Everything they had told him would have been ruled out as hearsay. We want to dispute the sentence because we think it's based on hearsay. Poaching. Illegal hunting or capturing of wild animals. Hunting. Killing illegally. Intruding. The penalty for poaching on royal estates used to be death by hanging. Poaching poses a huge threat to the survival of the animals in the forests. He supplemented his income by poaching, gambling, and out-and-out thieving. Defendant. A person who is being sued or accused. Respondent. Appellant. Litigant. The defendant is charged with a range of crimes, from theft to murder. The jury concluded from the evidence that the defendant was innocent. The defendant remained impassive as the judge sentenced him to death. Rehabilitation. To restore good health or useful life after a crime. Improvement. Correction. Betterment. The suspect was remanded to a juvenile drug court for rehabilitation. The offender was given community service as a means of rehabilitation. The rehabilitation program aims to address the root causes of reoffending. Abuse. Cruel and violent treatment of a person or animal. Maltreatment. Violence. Bullying. John received constant physical and psychological abuse from his father. In many cases, abuse can lead to both psychological and emotional problems. Drug abuse can cause memory loss and cognitive impairment for many people. Forgery. Crime that involves creating fake documents. Duplication. Mock-up. Falsification. She committed forgery and was imprisoned in jail for a year and a half. The Federal Reserve note is printed on special paper to prevent forgery. The defendant was charged with forgery upon creating fake credentials. Genocide. The deliberate killing of a large number of people. Massacre. Holocaust. Decimation. Ethnic cleansing is a form of genocide that targets specific ethnic groups. The law of nations prohibits acts of genocide and crimes against humanity. The country is still recovering from one of the worst genocides in modern times. Mugging. An act of attacking and robbing someone in a public place. Thievery. Pilfering. Stealing. Murders, kidnaps, and muggings are reported daily in the newspapers. The victim was injured during the mugging and required medical attention. The suspect was identified through CCTV footage from the mugging incident. Probation. A period of supervision over an offender. Evaluation. Appraisal. Assessment. He will be on probation for his involvement in the gang activity. If you violate the terms of probation, you may go back to jail. The employee was on probation for consistently being late to work. Trafficking. The activity of buying and selling goods or people illegally. Smuggling. Pirating. Exporting. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison on charges of drug trafficking. He announced a new task force, created to combat human trafficking. This scandal shows how arms trafficking has grown over the past decade. Vandalism. Action involving deliberate destruction of public property. Wrecking. Damage. Destruction. The vandalism had destroyed beyond repair the historical monument. The security cameras helped to identify suspects in the vandalism incident. The City Council launched a campaign to prevent vandalism in public spaces. Death sentence. The legal punishment of death for a crime. Death penalty. Death warrant. Execution. The extreme penalty of the law in some countries is the death sentence. They think that the death sentence is too severe a punishment for any crime. His most significant political achievement was the abolition of the death sentence.